Oh, so the vice presidency, it's a weird position. You have somebody who's basically on the steps to the throne and really has no power to make political moves by himself. Yes, they can sponsor legislation. I mean, they can really choose the amount of participation that they involve themselves in inside of the White House. So you can have somebody like Darth Cheney, who effectively was the president under George W. Bush, or you could have Joe Biden, who just kind of sticks to the background, is a team player, kind of the president's errand boy to an extent, and he'll have a few platforms or issues that he sticks to normally. Like maybe they're having a new program where they're announcing an initiative where they're spending a few millions or $1 billion on a space program with like NASA, or a school budget proposal for getting kids cheaper meals, stuff like that. It's normal. But he's been like absent almost completely from the White House, and what's he been doing? He's been raising money from political donors. So the New York Times writes here, Vice President Mike Pence has been courting scores of the country's most influential donors, corporate executives, and conservative political leaders over the past several months in a series of private gatherings and one-on-one conversations. The centerpiece of the effort is a string of dinners held every few weeks at the Vice President's official residence on the grounds of the Navy Observatory in Washington. Mr. Pence and his wife Karen have presided over the last 4 such soirees, and more are in the works. Each has drawn roughly 30 to 40 guests, including a mix of wealthy donors such as the Chicago hedge fund manager Kenneth C. Griffin and the brokerage firm founder Charles Schwab, as well as Republican fundraisers and executives from companies like Dow Chemical and the military contractor United Technologies. So, surprise, surprise, Mr. Drain the Swamp is not draining the swamp. Who would have thought? Donald Trump didn't tell the truth. It's not exactly the president, but like I said earlier, it's the president's errand boy. This is the dude who's Team Republican all the way. He's basically the cheerleader for the White House, for all intents and purposes. Mike Pence has decided to use the first few months of office to raise money for the next presidential run that Donald Trump's already started. He kicked off his first day in office. So, the role of a politician is obviously to pass legislation to help the people in their constituency. I mean, it's not very difficult. It's pretty straightforward, and why it's changed so much over the years is just because of one simple thing, and that's money in politics. Corruption. That simple. So now you've had the chair of vice presidency turn into a fundraiser. Just like I said earlier, a cheerleader for the White House who's going to go around, thank all the donors, shake their hands, have little conversations with them, give them a little attention and time, hear out some of their concerns, and that's who they take their direction from. And that's who they're trying to impress. Because these donors feel entitled to something when they give this much money to presidential candidates, or any political candidate for that matter. I mean, oh God, look at the toxic list of people who fund like Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell. I mean, it's so blatantly obvious what these people do, who they work for, if you just want to find out. But the cognitive dissonance is so strong these days on the right and left that people are unwilling to see corruption when it's right in front of their face looking back at them. Yes, this isn't particular to the Trump administration. Past administrations go on little victory laps and they'll thank donors, have them over to the White House, etc., etc. But they don't plan out every week, okay, we're going to have 40 more guests and 40 more people. Okay, who else donated to us? Who else do we have to entertain for the purposes of hiring or getting them to pay for our next election and finance our next endeavor. It's so circular and so blatant, and it should be obvious to everybody. Like I said, this is who runs our country. It's not you and me. So the guests and their families collectively helped raise millions of dollars to support Trump and Pence in 2016, and some are viewed in Republican finance circles as likely supporters for two new groups created by advocates for Mr. Trump, Mr. Pence, and their target legislative agenda and constitutional allies. The dinner guests list were curated by part by two of Mr. Pence's closest advisors, who have also played an important role in starting the new political groups America First Policies and the America First Action. So, there you have it. Like, these vague political action campaigns and super PACs that are just basically storage unit for dirty money, or to say money that comes from donors and back channels and kickbacks and things of that nature that you see people in office benefiting from all the time, and yet they still get away with, because corruption is just the model in Washington now. It's expected. If you get hired or brought into the system, you're expected to play ball or you sit on the bench. That's how it goes. And Mike Pence is the ultimate team player. I mean, it says right here, Mike Pence is the ultimate team player and works every day to make the president succeed, said Robert T. Grand, an Indianapolis lawyer who helped raise money for Mr. Pence's campaigns in Indiana for Congress and for governor. Mr. Grand attended a dinner at the vice president's residence in June. Quote, "There were a lot of folks who, if you were vice president, you would want to meet," Mr. Grand said. "Corporate executives, government leaders, and people from past administrations, not just donors," end quote. So he's like, no, it's not just the donors that he's getting money from. This is a Republican lawyer, by the way. So he's going to make him look good. He's meeting with other people from past administrations who definitely aren't in the game of corruption at all. I mean, dude, most people who get out of politics get back into a career of lobbying. The vast majority of people in DC are there for the purposes of milking the fucking tit of the cow that is America. And over time, the trust in our elected officials has eroded to about nothing, thanks to the fact that they don't represent the people anymore. There was a Princeton study, I believe in 2008 or 9, that showed the correlation between money in politics and the way that the vote is often swayed. And as it turns out, the people who give the politicians the money, the corporate interests, are like 80% likely to get anything passed that they want. And the public opinion had literally zero correlation with public policy, which is why you see things like the Senate healthcare bill trying to be rammed through the door by these Senate Republicans, and it only has a 12% approval rating from all Americans. I mean, the Affordable Care Act has a approval rating of over 50%. So keep that in mind when you see Donald Trump talking about corruption in Washington, people being corrupt, cronyism, anything to that extent or nature. It's all projection, man. It's what they are doing. This is, again, the biggest problem with our democracy. This is why your voice and my voice is not heard consistently year after year after year. It's because of fuckers like Mike Pence and the political establishment in Washington. So, if you like what I do, subscribe, like, and comment below, and I'll get back to you. And until next time, peace the fuck out.